welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
This is Jessica with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast, and we are here with an awesome author. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Jasper Fford. I'm a speculative fiction / fantasy / almost any genre you care to think of, living and writing in Wales.
Welcome. And right now we are going to talk about your book, The Constant Rabbit, which is due out in paperback. And I don't know if that book does cannot be defined by genre. I suppose speculative fiction, maybe, but I don't know that we're going to be living in a world with large anthropomorphic rabbits. But after the last 2 years, I wouldn't put it past anything. I mean, so why don't you tell the audience just a little bit about The Constant Rabbit?
Yeah, I think probably you could say it was allegorical fantasy, satire, whatever you want to call it, something like that. The basic conceit of the book is that in 1964, 18 rabbits were just anthropomorphized into these human-sized shaped creatures that could talk and they could walk and they could drive cars and read and have thoughts and all kinds of things. And when they arrived, everyone was like, wow, that's amazing, welcome, share with us your knowledge, we want to know what you eat, we want to know what you think. But that was in 1964, and it's now 2022, and there are 1.2 million rabbits living in the UK, and the British government wants to rehome them from the colonies that they are kept in at the moment to one big mega warren in Wales. And the rabbits, as you can imagine, don't like much the sound of this because humans don't have very good form when it comes to this sort of idea. And that's really where our story kind of starts.
So your story also starts in a library. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a nice surprise, and there was some really funny bits in there. Unfortunately, the library itself was open for how long? Like 6 minutes?
Well, it was all about library closures. So here in Hereford, Herefordshire, which is the next county to us, they've had so many cuts in their library budgets that we now joke that all the 6 libraries can only stay open for 2 minutes every fortnight, and you have to get all of the returns and your renewals and everything done in that time, which leads to this thing called speed librarying, which is the first chapter of the book, and it just kind of sets up a sort of slightly off-kilter, silly world, introduces our character, and introduces Connie Rabbit, who is a large anthropomorphized female rabbit, with whom she may have a little bit of a thing with the protagonist. So it kind of sets it all up, really.
So the protagonist is Peter, who is not a rabbit.
Yeah.
Was his name intentional for that reason?
What you're thinking of the Knox?
Peter Rabbit, more so.
Oh, the Peter. Yeah, actually, yeah. The Peter is obviously from Peter Rabbit. So there's lots and lots of nods. I mean, the interesting thing about books and about fantasy, and about sort of inventing sort of impossible worlds made real, if you like, is that you can do a lot of research and you can throw in lots of little extra detail. And when it comes to rabbits, obviously they've been a big part of human existence for a long, long time. We have a very difficult relationship with rabbits because when they're pets, they're cute and they're fluffy and they're cuddly and we adore them and we love them to bits. And if anyone touched them, you could end up in prison. Here in the UK, you could, cruelty to animals, not allowed. However, if they're not pet rabbits, they are a pest, they are vermin, they need to be controlled, they need to be exterminated, and you won't go to prison at all or be fined or anything. In fact, you're sometimes even offered cash to do so. So there's a very, very odd sort of relationship that humans not only have with the animals that we share our biosphere, but also with each other. So I think there was rabbits are a really good choice when you're doing sort of an allegory, animal allegory, because there's all sorts of things about human relationships that you can see through the lens of our relationship with rabbits.
That is very interesting. And there are three types of rabbits described in the book. There's pet type, there's lab type, which is like even more of a complicated relationship because we use them. And then there's also wild type, which are more like the ones that you were talking about. But Connie is an old friend of Peter, and Peter himself has a very complicated relationship with the world that he lives in because there's a lot of prejudice towards these anthropomorphized rabbits, and he benefits from it greatly, even though he looks down on the people who are like full-on rabbit racists.
Yeah, it's a so there's pet stock, wild stock, and lab stock. So I thought that even amongst rabbits there'd be a sort of divisions within the rabbit community as well. But curiously enough, those divisions were made by humans, and I think that's a really big point. But yeah, so Peter Knox, he works for the Rabbit Compliance Task Force, but he's kind of a very small cog. And the RABSOC, the Rabbit Compliance Task Force, is not obviously very friendly towards rabbits. And Peter is he's kind of a good guy, sort of, and he doesn't think that he's leporophobic in the least, and will tell everyone, I'm not leporophobic, and if somebody didn't do my job, then other people would have to, and I get a pension and I get paid. So he's got a lot of sort of baggage going on inside. So there's a lot of issues that he has. And I think really part of the sort of on the main thrust of the book is really kind of Peter Knox's journey to a kind of self-realization about just how much he is a part of the problem, the human v rabbit problem, even without knowing it. So he has a qualified understanding, I think, by perhaps the near the end of the book, and I think there's perhaps many people would see parallels with maybe themselves, and if there's any point of an allegory, an allegorical book, is to ask questions not about rabbits but about ourselves. And if we can ask questions about ourselves in a sort of non-threatening, non-preachy, non-standing on a soapbox, boring sort of stuff, then I think there's something there that could perhaps work for the good, or work for the better.
Yeah, there's definitely passages in the book that really popped out and were very good parallels for certain things that are happening today and have been happening for a very, very long time. And I also thought it was interesting. So 1964, did you pick that because you kind of had to do math as to how many rabbits would exist out of 18, or did you pick 1964 because it's kind of a hippy dippy time?
I don't know why I chose that. I don't know why I chose this. I just wanted it to be a long time. I wanted the rabbits rabbits and of humans had to have time to be together. It wasn't the rabbits have just arrived. That would have been another book entirely, and wouldn't have been an interesting book. I think this is the rabbits been here for a long time, so that's why I kind of chose it. But actually, I did run the numbers on the rabbits. And the fact there are only 1.2 million of them now shows considerable, how can I put it, sort of restraint on behalf of the rabbits. I mean, considerable restraint.
Restraint was the word that was coming to my mind when you were looking.
Yeah. I think one of the anti-rabbit people who belong to the United Kingdom anti-rabbit party do actually make that, as one of the main planks of their problems with rabbits is that they might be planning what they call a litter bomb. which was basically that they'd suddenly start breeding. And then, yeah, if you do run the numbers, here in the UK, rabbits being rabbits, yeah, I think it would take about 5 years for rabbits to outnumber humans. And of course, that's the fear mongering. They breed, and they burrow, and and they have this dangerous vegan agenda and all this sort of stuff. So it's just these kind of made up, sort of fears about the demonized other, which was in a weird way very quite. I don't know. I don't want to use the word fun to write, and it kind of writes itself. It's kind of chilling in a kind of weird kind of way, but it does kind of slot together quite easily. The parallels between rabbits and humans, and the way humans treat rabbits, the way humans treat humans, it wasn't that difficult to find the parallels. So it was fun to write in a kind of chilling way, but there's a lot of comedy in it as well. So I wouldn't want people to think that it's just this out and out political,
no, not at all
kind of nonsense. There is some comedy there, and there's a bit of a love story and a little love triangle, and and sort of stuff like that as well.
Yeah, no, it was very funny, and there's a lot of ways that these types of books can go, and I enjoy this type of book very much. But it's like you could do it in the way that you're doing it, where there is comedy and there's levity, and you're kind of like you're getting your knocks, but you're getting them while kind of like, I don't know, drinking a sugary drink that's making you giggle, or it's doom, which some people like, but that could get really rough and might put people off the point of the story. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, and it's a completely different story, but in a way it was a story that presented a point in an interesting way. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Pleasantville.
No, I know of it, but I've never actually seen it.
Yeah, that was an interesting movie in the late 90s, where, I mean, when you saw the commercial for it, you thought it was going to be this ridiculous, like not great, forgettable movie about people from our world who walk into a literal black and white TV show from the 50s. And it really was actually about a lot more. And I think, this book has that too, because some people might be like, I like satire, I like sci-fi fantasy. And then you're reading it and you're just like, oh. But I do want to talk a little bit about Connie before we go, because I really liked her. She was a really good character, and she was very funny, especially just in, the way that she talks about rabbit culture. And it was, I guess, surprising to humans, because she's very nonchalant about certain things, because they're just, this is how it is in rabbit culture. But she's also kind of an activist. And when we meet her in the library for the first time, she's almost starting like a form of peaceful protest by walking into that library and saying, well, I'm here to get a book. And like the other people in the library are trying to put her off and be like, yeah, well, not here. And she's just like, well, what is a library for then?
Yeah, so there are lots of things that I really like about Connie. I think one of the interesting things, I mean, when she first appears, she appears like just as a throwaway, almost, the fact that she's a rabbit, but also that she won't take no for an answer, and she clearly knows she's in the right, and is not going to move, is not going to be moved, and just doesn't care. And it, you understand with Connie quite quickly that not only is she extremely fierce, but also there's a very tender side to her, I think, which is really, really nice. But what I think what was fun about writing her is that she's not a human character. And I think that was the fun I had with writing the rabbit characters, is that you're almost writing a sort of an alien character, because most human characters are kind of human, and they have human rules and regulations, and you have to stick by some conventions. But when you come to writing rabbit characters, they can have all kinds of slightly odd, off-kilter, different things, in which, yes, she can be this sort of person, but she can be that sort of person just as easily. I really like that sort of that part of her. And they're not mutually exclusive. It's like, you know, you could be a very aggressive person, but then you can actually be a very loving person. And if you're human, then that's a kind of a weird thing, and that's a strange character. But in Rabbits, it might not be at all. So I think she was great fun to write, and I think she's probably one of my favorite female sort of characters in all my books. I'd love to meet her. I must say, I think she'd probably be incredibly unimpressed by me, but but I would like to meet her. I mean, she's one of the characters I would definitely like to meet.
Yeah, she was really great, and I just really liked how you met her. Like we were just talking about, it was just a lot of fun. So before we go, are there any talks about adaptations of other media, perhaps?
No, there's nothing at all. As you said, it comes out in paperback in the US at the end of the month, which is great. But no adaptations, no sniffs around for movies or anything like that. But I think it would make it'd make a great film in the right movie maker hands. And now we're in the digital era of movie making. I think we could really go to town with the
absolutely.
with the CGI, and it just be great fun.
I mean, the only problem I would have with it is that my kids are obsessed with rabbits and would think it's a movie for them.
Yeah.
You know, Peter Rabbit and Hop are really big in my house.
Yeah, rabbit. I like rabbits. We have a lot of rabbits, you know, and they're not pests here in the UK at the moment. So yeah, and it's amazing when you start writing books about rabbits, and even when you're tweeting about them, and you just put a hashtag of rabbit, you know, and all of a sudden you get this other sort of subculture of people who like rabbits just suddenly excited because, you know, there was the, oh my god, I've forgotten its name, the famous rabbit book, Watership Down. You know, it's like Watership Down, that was like our book, and now there's another book about rabbits. So yeah, it's amazing. You can just sort of pick up these readers from quite different places, unexpected places.
I think rabbits are almost like a dark horse to cats. You know, the internet loves cats, and the internet really loves dogs too, but cats are king of the internet. But in the corners of the internet, kind of lurking behind cats, which is funny because in the wild, cats would be the predators of the rabbits. You have a lot of rabbit culture, like you were saying, on the internet. So very cool. It's good fun. And I had to get in some guinea pigs as well, because I just you know, very large talking guinea pigs, you know, what's not to like about that. So so there's a little bit about guinea pigs. I put in a little paragraph about guinea pigs, anthropomorphized guinea pigs as well. So so there should be something there for the guinea pig owners too. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Please come back and talk about your next book.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you.
It's great fun chatting with you. So once again, this was Jessica, and my guest was.
This is Jasper Fford, author of The Constant Rabbit, which comes out in paperback in the US at the end of September.
And we are going to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.